The owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, has been arrested and is now facing charges involving solicitation of prostitution. Geez, okay, there's a lot going on today. Kraft was charged with 2 counts of soliciting sex. More than 24 men ranging in ages from 34 to 81 have been arrested. Hundreds have been charged. Now, this is due to an FBI investigation into a giant sex ring. Now, these are salons and massage parlors, mostly in Florida, where this type of trafficking took place. The women involved, and I wanna emphasize this, appear to be victims, right? So you hear about massage parlors where certain, things happen. And in this case, we're not talking about women who were consenting to these sex acts. They appear to be victims. At least that is what the investigation is telling us so far. But without further ado, I wanna go to the police press conference on this because I found it kind of interesting, and so did JR when he found this video, how the police reluctantly stated the name of someone pretty rich and powerful. Take a look.
One of the names on the list, can you confirm for us that that name is the high-profile individual and professional sports franchise owner that we believe it to be? And could you please speak to that name and that situation?
Yes, sir. He is one of the individuals.
Who he is?
That would be Mr. Robert Kraft.
Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots?
Yes, sir.
Right. Why wouldn't you just say his name from the get-go?
So yep, you said it.
Yeah.
It's him.
By the way, quick correction I wanna make. He actually hasn't been arrested. He's gonna have the opportunity to turn himself in, but he has been charged. So quick correction, I got a little frazzled here with the story.
Right.
Yeah. So just to give you some more details, all of the sexual encounters that have resulted in charges were videotaped as part of the investigation. Investigators charged nearly 200 people, though only a fraction have been arrested so far. Police also said that Kraft visited Orchids of Asia, that's the name of the massage parlor, twice, and a driver had dropped him off there. Now again, they have video, and the way that they were able to obtain that video is kind of amazing. So authorities suspected that there was criminal activity happening in these massage parlors, and so they would follow some of the patrons as they would leave and stop them in a traffic stop and start asking questions. Several of the men started telling the authorities what was going on behind closed doors, and that was enough for the authorities to obtain a warrant and then basically put the cameras in the parlors. And so that's how they were able to obtain all of this video evidence that they're alleging they have for the case.
I love the way they broke in. So okay, so there's a Godfather's, not Godfather's, Goodfellas Pizza down in the same strip mall as this. I loved this part of the story. And then so the owner of that is from Philly. He's like, oh, I've seen some things. And then so he said when they came in that day, the police busted in and they said that there was a bomb threat and we have to get inside. They cleared everyone out of the massage parlor. And that's probably when they set up the cameras. The guy at the Goodfellas Pizza said, well, I'm right here next door. They didn't evacuate my pizza joint, so that must mean they're doing something illegal inside that massage place. So he was waiting and watching. Then he noticed some of the women that worked there and also lived there were walking around aimlessly on certain days, not necessarily visiting other restaurants or stores in this plaza, and they looked pretty skinny and underfed and under malnutrition. So he's like, something really bad is going on. So he'd seen some things and he was suspecting everything.
And that's where, and I think more information is going to come out of this case. I mean, as we've said, only a handful of those 200 people have actually been arrested so far. So I'm imagining there's more to come. But the fact that these women looked as they did, that they are actually victims, that this, or at least part of it was a coerced situation. Again, it goes back to, well, so many things, but the power inequality of this entire situation, and Kraft as one of potentially many people who could come out of this with some component of power. I mean, I have to imagine that he's not the only sort of wealthy man going into that parlor, that somewhere along the way he has to have known people who knew about it, and they have to, to an extent, be involved. So I'm imagining we're going to get more names coming out of this, but certainly he is, very high profile, very wealthy, and we'll see what happens with respect to him and the others.
So based on reporting, he faces, if he's convicted, a maximum of 1 year in prison. And look, my views on sex work have been clear. I think it should be legalized and regulated, right? That way you have less instances of people being trafficked like this.
And you protect anyone who is involved as opposed to abusing whoever's involved. That would be a different way of going about it.
Yeah, I think a better way, because the way that it's criminalized now and the way it's happening behind closed doors is not creating a safe situation for these women. It creates more victims. And in this case, and more details are gonna come out. And so I don't really wanna get into what allegedly happened with the women. But nonetheless, regardless, there's always been that exchange, since the beginning of mankind. And so I think it's better to make sure that we have a way of protecting sex workers as opposed to allowing this kind of dark, shadowy stuff happen.
Yeah, let's think a couple things. There's, if anything, if you're talking about the potential decriminalization of sex work, if enough rich, powerful guys get busted and caught up with it, suddenly things will change. We saw about with some of the drug things that happen. Once enough rich guys can make money off it, or once enough kids that we don't think are actual criminals are getting caught up in being criminalized for it, they start changing the rules. Or enough folks that are on certain kinds of drugs we thought are just disposable people. Oh, now all my kid in middle class America's on these particular drugs, opioids. Oh, suddenly now we have a problem. We better fix this. So if this continues to happen this way, they keep catching up billionaires in I don't want to say the right term, but those tug rings, then suddenly they're gonna suddenly do something different about this, right? Now also Robert Kraft, obviously owner of the Patriots, who just won another Super Bowl, he's a big enough name now that what is the NFL gonna do now? Because Robert Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, has to lay down some kind of disciplinary action, even if Kraft doesn't get what the full extent of the law, which I don't really expect. But at least we'll have to, now the commissioner has a chance to lay down the law and say what they're gonna do to make sure their league is clean. Because when players get involved, when players fail a drug test, when players get caught drunk driving, hey, they pay the consequences. So we'll see if it happens the same way here.
And they
now he's on
particularly
the
have
clock.
under him as well. I mean,
and so this is the thing about the commissioner. The owners, and of course Kraft is one of the big name ones, they get together and determine the commissioner's paycheck, how much he gets paid, and all this. So he's a little bit, he doesn't have the same kind of leeway to just lay down on the owners the way he can lay at the players. So there's limitations on his power because they kind of pay him.
Look, I could be wrong about this, but from my memory, it didn't appear that the NFL cared too much about the way players treated other women. It seemed like they cared way more about drug abuse because that would probably, in their minds, hurt the effectiveness of the players, right? But I mean, there were so many stories years ago, I believe back in 2014. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really follow sports at all, including the wrongdoings of players in the NFL, but I don't know, I'm really curious to see how
the term that they use is conduct detrimental to the league, that the commissioner deems detrimental to the league. So it's under his discretion whether or not this is detrimental to the league enough. I think it is.
I mean, I agree with you.
Makes you look bad, unless the fan base doesn't care. That's what he's gonna base it off of.
I guess we'll see.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcasts.